Well, hope it's valuable and worth it. And I watched the one that you did with Goose, and I think that
Yeah,
was super valuable. So I think this kind of content, like knowing your audience, I think if you keep doing more
yeah,
of it,
no.
it'd be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to do this with you. With Goose, it was all about understanding the strategy and setting up KPIs and knowing where I'm going with the company, but very analytical side of things.
Yeah.
But I understand in anything there's analytical side of things, and then there's the cultural, the emotional, the spiritual side of things.
Yeah.
It's 50-50. Like,
So yin and yang.
yeah, the yin and yang, and you can't really make something work without having both of them working at the same time.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
that's why I wanted to have this chat with you, because you, as a co-founder, you guys even got best place to work
We did. Yeah. It's wild.
while being a totally remote company, and you have over 100 employees now.
I think we've just hit 99. So I think we're edging on the 100. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's totally remote, which is
Totally
crazy.
remote. Yeah.
How are you? How did you get best place to work?
Well, I should correct that, right? I say yes. We technically got best place to work in the property industry, and
Well,
it was
there are so
within.
many property companies though.
There are a lot, and we were only 4 years into business at that point, and it's really just because we really care about it. And I know that sounds kind of naive, but it's just when we started the business, we had no idea, right? Similar maybe to where you're at right now, but you kind of start a business, you think, I need people to help me to do certain tasks, like I'll start hiring people. Culture is not usually a thing that comes to mind early on, because you're just like, I just have things we need to do, I need to hire people, like let's just do this stuff together. And we went through that. Like we went through, all right, just Goose and I doing things. Let's like find some people to like call some leads, do some people to help with admin. We just had this little collection of people that were helping us to do things. And that was the first couple of years of the business. And through like just before the pandemic, we kind of had this realization of this is not how great companies are made. And like there's the book that we read, which was Good to Great by Jim Collins, which we've talked about before, but that was a real kind of shake up actually reading that book, because it reminded us that the way that we're doing things is not how great companies are made. So we really realized that in order to have something amazing for a long term, and this comes back to like why you're creating the business in the first place, it's taking responsibility for crafting something that people want to work towards together. And it's really like, as soon as that kind of like slotted into place for me, I was like, oh, this is my responsibility to make sure that everyone that is here because it's helping them to become their best selves, and we're all kind of moving something forward together. And that was really the seed of it. It was like, okay, we need to make sure that we're getting people in that are aligned with the kind of company that we want to build. And we need to make sure that what they want to achieve in their life, we are actually slotting into that place to fulfill that. And that was kind of the seed. Like it was everything that we've done culturally since then has been like, how do we just make this a really cool place? Like, how do we make sure that people show up every day and just be stoked for what they're doing? You know, they don't think of it like a job. They're thinking about it while they're sleeping, which is not, I don't encourage that. I'm not idolizing like team members that go home and just obsess about work, but it is pretty cool that people want to do that, you know, like they're working towards something that they really care about. That's the seed of it. Like there's mechanics, I guess, that go into it, but that's like the seed.
The mechanics is what I wanted to learn from
Yeah.
you today. This is not really a podcast. This is like I'm getting mentored by you because
Yeah,
I'm
cool.
in this growth journey, and I want to ask you questions because I'm on the same service industry as you
Yeah.
guys, and I'm at this very not even 1%, I would say, in my growth journey. And it's just super valuable to understand what kind of things that you guys did to grow so big, so I can just adopt those lessons, learnings into my business. So that's why I have very specific questions. So you mentioned you planted this seed, and one of the keywords that you mentioned there was culture. And Editoz Club as well is a totally remote company. And one of the things that I was battling with is do I need to create a culture? And why should I create a culture? Can I just give them, or all right, these are the things that we have to do this week, and let's just measure our performance with KPIs and let's just work, why do I need a culture is what I wanted to ask you. I understand that I need a culture. I know because I've seen Dashdot work really well, and I see how much I'm on Dashdot Slack, and I can see all these employees are very, very hyped up. They share so many messages together. They are doing these cooking shows and like sharing music, which is awesome. Like that's the kind of Slack that I want to be in. But I don't know whether that's important for the business, for my my growth. Can you talk through why do I need a culture, and why do I need a culture?
Yeah, two things. Is that something that you would want to be a part of? I know you kind of are, but you see that culture, is that something that you'd want to create, just face value?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I said, like, when I see those people, like your employees messaging each other on Slack, like I get very jealous because on Editoz Club Slack, we rarely message each other like that.
Silent.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, oh, it would be awesome to have that kind of environment, like where everybody's just chatting. But again, at the same time, I'm thinking, oh, the editors are super busy. Do I need to like, disturb them by sending them messages about what they ate today or what music are they listening to right now?
Yeah.
So I'm just battling, my thoughts there.
Priorities, yeah. No, that makes sense. And like that, honestly, that can be reason enough, because it's probably part of why I care about it so much, is because I kind of saw that with other companies. Like you see it with startups and stuff. They have these cool cultures, and you, from the outside, if you haven't experienced that, you can look in and go, I want that. And that probably was a big seed for it for me as well. It's like, I just want to create that environment for people. The second part though is like, what kind of company are you trying to build? Because you don't have to have an amazing company, amazing culture. There's a lot of companies that don't, but it's like, you trying to create something where you really care about your team and like where they're at in their lives and making sure that they're having a good time while they're working here? Or is it more a company that just is kind of going through the motions and getting like doing good work, but not as much a kind of part of their lives? And either way is fine.
Do you think it helps to grow the business, as well as is it attached to the purpose, like overall purpose of your journey, of you and Goose's journey?
Yes.
So it helps with the growth of Dashdot. And do you measure it in any way, or?
We do engagement surveys once every 4 months. We'll do a team survey, which is basically, it's all anonymous, and it's just getting a sense of how the team feel about the company and their roles and the team and the culture and their managers and all kinds of stuff. I believe a large part in why we've grown so quickly is because of the team and the way that everyone shows up for each other. And a big part of it, just kind of mechanically, it comes down to hiring and making sure that you are getting the right people on board. And it's tricky in your industry because it's a creative space, and you have like, you've got creative people, but it's also skills based. So it's like balancing this hiring for the skill that you need, but then also for the right mindset. And I think that's where we kind of probably got stuck like early in the business, like I was talking about, is where you would hire just for skills. We'd hire people that we liked and got along with, but weren't exactly aligned with the values that we had as a team. And then that's over time where you see cracks, and that's when you feel tension, I think, in companies, when people aren't fully just rowing in the same direction. They don't think the same way. They don't prioritize the same things. Have you thought at all about company values or those kind of things?
Yeah, that was going to be my second question. Like, to your point, I'm definitely making that mistake right now. I am hiring all these people who are meeting that skill requirement, but they either don't stay, or we don't enjoy working together, or the expectations are not met. So I'm facing all those vibe issues, even though the skill is on point, like they're really, really skillful, but vibing is not there. Like we just can't work together. And there were so many people who joined and then they just left.
What specifically is it that you don't enjoy about, you don't have to pick on individuals, but what is it that you don't enjoy about certain people that are coming in? Because it'll help to, you can invert that to then define what you do want.
What I don't enjoy is if they don't stick to the word. So, for example, they would say, oh, yeah, integrity. That's just like really, really, really important for me. I'll give you a very specific example. So when we onboard editors, we give them all this training. We give them a guide on, okay, these are the things that you have to do in order to get the client's work, and then you edit and then you deliver. There were instances where these new editors came in and they have this edit due calendar and they have to deliver a certain video on that date, and they would miss that due date, and then we would ask them, was there any problem? Like, did you not understand the guides? Sometimes they would come back and say, I just am not available. At that point, I just immediately understand, this might not work. And then we just immediately, okay, like let's not continue from here. And there were instances where we agreed on pricing, because obviously the editors were coming in, we pay them a certain amount, and then we agree on pricing, and then we sign all the agreements, and then we onboard them. And then once the work starts, they deliver a certain video output. The output does not match the expectations, and then I ask, why did you not edit it properly? And they would say, for the price I'm getting paid, like I can't do more than this, right. Which is a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Because like we
After
give
delivery.
them give them examples of this is exactly how you would be editing, and just give us your pricing of if you were to edit like this. Yeah, so those were a couple of instances where I just felt, no, I don't want to continue this collaboration.
I think I've asked you before, but everyone's kind of just on a contract, like they're contractors, right?
Yeah, contractors, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it sounds like you've been doing well with the onboarding, with the training, like the skills base. This is what I needed to do to meet our standards. So maybe even so I've written down integrity as a value, which can be like a stereotypical value to use, but it's important, particularly in like your space where you have deadlines and you have things that you need to meet for your clients. It's important to have people on board that do what they say that they're going to do. So that does make sense. Quality was what I was thinking could be a second one, because like I know that you have high particular standards in terms of editing as well, and it's like you probably don't want someone clocking in, clocking out and putting stuff out that they're like ticking the box on. Like you want someone who cares about creating good work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that I'm trying to find that when I'm onboarding them. So I feel like there's a gap in the onboarding process, the hiring process, because I'm like 100% looking at the skill and whether they have past experience in doing the work that we require done. But because the environment is completely remote, I just don't understand if this person is somebody that we can vibe with and work with, and whether they are gonna stick to their word and whether they are gonna be a part of the team.
Do you interview them at all, or do you just, it might be more of a trial, like test edit or something? Yeah,
so initially no interview at all. I would just look at their portfolio. I wouldn't even like get them to do a test task, because when I used to apply for jobs, I would hate it if I had a portfolio and then somebody wanted me to do a test task. I really didn't like it.
Yeah, okay.
Because I thought, all right, my portfolio is the good example. Yeah, that's the test task. So I never give them a test task. I just onboarded them. But then from the people that I onboarded, if I onboarded 10 people, at least 3 of them would be people that we wouldn't work with, and they would just join, and then we would spend all this time training them, and they would just leave. And from there onwards, I started interviewing them, I would just jump on a call with them and chat with them. But again, I don't think there was an impact in that integrity part of things. They would just talk with me and or understand the entire process. One of the examples is the guy who joined and said, did the work and said, oh, like, I'm not getting paid enough to do this kind of stuff. I interviewed him and he was a very, very lovely person. But then once the work was done, he was like, oh, I can't do it for this price.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand, how can I avoid those kind of mishires?
The interview is important, and sounds like it may need work. And it does kind of come back to, I know it can seem a little bit like, why does this stuff matter? Like, why do values matter? Why does mission value matter? Hiring is kind of like a marketplace where you have, like, you're an employer, and then there's a marketplace of editors in your case, or employees out there. And you also need to show up as somewhere valuable for them to commit to as well. So it's like, if you can understand what you provide as a company that would make them excited to work there, then that's important to work out. And then that flows into the literal interviews. So it's like, we actually do 2 rounds of interviews for most of our roles. And there's a skill-based kind of process, and then there's culture-based process. And the culture-based is really understanding these things. So like, if integrity is a value, you need to ask questions about them that's going to prove that they have integrity. So it's not just a matter of jumping on a call and getting a sense for, do I vibe with this person? Do I like them? Could we work together? Because you probably could, but then maybe down the track you find out that, and it sounds like this is what's happening, you find out that they say one thing but then just don't follow through. And I think in your case as well, there's a bit of a cultural thing that you're battling, where this is what most editors are used to. Most editors are used to just kind of like being given a task and they not being held accountable to what they say. They're just kind of, because they're remote, people just hire them online, they go do this thing and then they do it. Like, it feels, there's this culture for them of, I'm transactional, so why do I need to commit? And so it's similar with like dating, you know, like if you're in early dating and you've just kind of like meeting the wrong people and it's this like transactional thing, it takes for someone to come along and show you that there's a different possibility for you to realize, like, oh, I can actually commit to something else as well. It's this weird like analogy there. Does that make sense though? Yeah.
That made sense. That's a cool analogy.
Yeah.
How do you exactly identify that in your interviews at Dashdot? Because you have 99 employees, and I'm guessing that you must have a lot of mishires, did you? Earlier on?
Early on, did we? I feel like our run rate is pretty good, to be honest. And I think that's because we've gotten so good at knowing who to let in and who to not let in, because it's so important. Because we see our culture, you know, literally like a petri dish, like a culture in a petri dish. Anything that you add into the culture, it needs to make it better. It can't take away. So we've been really good at, it's not necessarily getting exactly the same kind of people in, but making sure that we're not adding in something that's going to sour everything else, because that's just like really detrimental to the rest of the business. Early on, it was harder for sure, just because we had, and we're at a point now where we have volume on our side, so we can put up an ad and get 100 applicants for different things. So we have that volume where we can be more picky with who comes in, which is amazing.
So what kind of things that you have done now to strategically meet that expectation with the people who are coming in? How do you do the hiring process?
Like I said, there's like two-step interview process. Like the whole hiring process is really critical. And so I'm not sure exactly where you find people that would want to work on your team. I know that you've got a good LinkedIn presence. Is it mostly through there and your own content?
Yeah, I was finding through LinkedIn, and now I'm going and pitching people on Upwork and Fiverr.
Cool. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so you're going to have even more challenges with the transactional, because people literally jump on there and pay them, like, do this thing. It's not so much about the cultural thing. I would probably start with, again, I think of the dating analogy, just getting it like out in the open immediately with the people that you're potentially speaking with to join the team, where it's like, look, I know that you're used to this kind of transactional relationship. I actually want to build a team that really care about the work. I really care about making sure that you care about the work, and I'm going to do everything that I can. When you get to a point, you can have things in there that you can put in the offer of like, look, we have these kind of rewards and we work these kind of hours. We do this kind of thing with our team, in that kind of pitch to them. But it's really just being like clearing that first, because you'll weird out a lot of people in that process, which is a good thing. You actually want people to say no, because you want to find out at that point that they're not into what you have to offer. So that's a good starting point. But then it becomes about the interview. So assuming that you've seen their portfolio, you think skill wise they'd be good, and you've got onboarding stuff from a skills perspective, right?
Yeah.
So the interview again can largely come down to the cultural based stuff. So it's asking questions about and you don't, trying to think how to word this, because it's not directly like asking, do you have integrity? Because everyone's going to say, yes, I do. And it's not also, don't ask questions that are, how would you go about this, like hypothetical scenarios, because people can also make stuff up, because people are on their best behaviors in interviews and they're trying to be impressive. You want to ask, and I can't really think of an example right now, but you want to ask questions that demonstrate that they have shown the trait that you're looking for in the past. So you could say something like, tell me about a time when you were working on a project and you committed to this outcome, but you didn't quite meet the deadline. Like, what happened and how did you handle it? And the how did you handle it can reveal a lot, because they can explain what happened. And if they end up blaming other people for it, that's kind of a red flag. If they say, oh, this happened, but they didn't show any kind of sign that they thought that was a bad thing, that can show also maybe they don't have integrity. And so these interview questions, they become really important, and it's a bit of an art to it to figure out, how do I ask the question to give the signs of the characteristics that I want, rather than just directly asking, do you have the thing that I want?
Yeah, that's smart. How did you learn that? Is that from resources that you read, or from experience you understood these are the kind of questions I need to ask?
That's honestly, that part is intuitive. That was just experience and learning, like, okay, we had a few, like early on, we probably did have a few mishires where we didn't clear up, are they actually aligned culturally? And probably because we went through the process of just asking, like, how would you go about this? And then they say a cookie cutter answer and you're like, oh, that sounds good, tick. But it's really just understanding, trying to get to the core of that person, because as a business owner, like, you're going to invest a lot of not money, but like time and energy to develop this person as a professional. Like, I want to make sure that it's worth it. I want to make sure that we're aligned and they're going to get value out of it. And it just became really critical to actually find that out early on. And again, I think like with dating, the earlier you can ask and clear up this stuff earlier in the relationship, like the better.
Yeah, gotcha.
A good book though that comes to mind is Who. There's a book called Who. I think it's by Jeff Smart. That's a really good for hiring process and figuring out like a scope for a role and the kind of interview questions and things. So that was a really good book that I learnt, that I read early on as well.
And in terms of the rituals now, when they're in the company, how do I make sure that they're happy and they feel like part of the entire team and they want to grow the business, not just working on a day-to-day basis? Of course, like they want to develop themselves. Like, I don't expect them to be totally selfless and have achieved some kind of spiritual thing, but at least think about the company growth, and if the company grows, I'm going to grow as well. How do I encourage them? What kind of rituals do I need to have in place for that?
Yeah, and this is assuming that you've nailed the interviews, you've nailed the hiring, you've got everyone on board. Again, it comes back to mission, and it comes back to having something that everyone can get on board and really root for. So, like, why did you start your company, other than to make money?
I thought about myself. I know this is a bit cliche and
go for it. Yeah.
I thought about myself at least like 10 years ago. I didn't have an opportunity to access some sort of a fund and do my own creative business. Like if I wanted to be an artist, like a painter, I didn't have any access to any like a business loan or like any money from my parents or an uncle or whatever to go and do what I want to do as a creative person. So my ultimate goal is to create that fund for creatives all around the world. One of the things that I really resonate with is engineers, doctors, they all make life possible, but then artists make life bearable is something that I always
nice.
Resonate with. So I think like a lot of artists need nurturing because they get lost in the money aspect of it. Like they don't have enough funds to go and do what they want. And that's what I want to make possible for artists all around the world. And I thought for me to do that, I need to have money first. I need to build a business first. And the easiest business to make was, from what I know, the best, building personal brands. And that's why I started this agency.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. That's cool. I wasn't expecting as cool an answer, so that's good. That's good. And do you like that? Do you think that people, like the kind of people that would work on your team, would feel motivated by that?
They don't know.
You
this.
don't. Again, okay, we're imagining you've nailed the hiring process, and you've just got like your kind of people on the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. I think so
Yeah.
because it's a classic. I know that you said it's cliche, but it's just like it's a classic example of you're doing something for who you were a few years ago. Like that's who your audience is and your why, which is totally valid, and that's what's kind of motivating for a lot of people. And so I think if you can create, like figure out for yourself as a business owner, like what does that plan look like to reach that goal? And like I know it's probably going to be an ongoing thing because if it's a fund, the fund needs to keep getting topped up and everything. But like mechanically, you're at this point now where you have an editing agency. Like, what does the plan look like to get to this point where you have enough money that you can start this fund for creators? And then being able to articulate that with your amazing team that you've onboarded perfectly. If they're the right people that are on board and they care about that, like that's going to motivate them in itself to show up and work every day versus just having an editing job where they don't care about the outcome. Like, why am I here is really important.
Is that how I would craft the mission?
It can be, yeah.
I always got mission and vision confused.
Yeah.
And from what I said, how would you go about doing mission and vision? I'm sorry, I'm getting you to do my work.
It's good. It's good. It's good. It's fine. It looks all good. I'm just making shit up too, so it's like it's on you to figure it out.
Yeah.
The difference that I see between vision and mission, like vision is what kind of macro impact do I want to have on the world with what I'm doing with my company? Like what change do I see that this company can have in the world? And then the mission is more like a tangible, like we want to help X amount of people in this amount of time. Like it's more of you can build a plan towards that. Whereas the vision is like more the creative, romantic, how I want to transform the world. So with yours, like your vision might be something like we want to create enough resources for creators to live their best lives or whatever. Like that's not the best wording, but that kind of, you're here to ultimately help creators.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the bigger vision. Whereas the mission might be, I'm just thinking this through because you do actually want to tie it to your day-to-day work, which is like video production and editing.
Mm-hmm.
And mission can often be in like that 5 to 10 year timeline as well. So it's like in the next 5 years, what kind of impact do I want to have with the service that I provide, keeping in mind the ultimate vision. So it might be something like accelerate 1,000 personal brands so that we can provide funding for 1,000 creators in 10 years time or something like that. Have kind of like tangible points around it so that you can measure it as you go. Because the measurement, coming back to your point about the rituals, measuring is really important. And I feel like Goose probably spoke to you about this. Having these KPIs, and it's not just about, like KPIs are the things that keep the business running. It's like making sure that all the pieces in the human business and the machine that is the business are working as they need to go. So it's keeping the machine oiled and lubricated and going. But there's other metrics that you track and that you share with everyone, and we measure like how are we tracking towards this mission. If that mission is 1,000 personal brands so that we can fund 1,000 creators, like early in the business, you're probably not going to have any movement on that 1,000 creators side, but you might have every client that you sign up, it's adding to that 1,000 creators point. And again, the ritual is sharing that with the team and keeping people accountable. Like when you get people in, as you grow, you'll probably get people into the sales part of your team. So then helping them to track their measurement of moving towards the mission and the ultimate vision. You see how that all kind of stacks up?
Yeah. So mission is attached to the output that we are creating, the ultimate output that we want to create eventually.
Yeah,
is
kind of,
mission, and then vision is what happens with that outcome of the output that we are creating.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. And then how do I create the values around that? I know that in the interview stage, I would create like one of the values would be integrity, and then I would have that integrated into the questions that we are asking at the interview stage. But what other values do I need to create around that to make sure that the mission and vision is aligned?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a bit of a guessing game, really, but how I've done it before, I think if you can choose like 3 to 4 maybe core values is probably good. And it's really ultimately like what 3 or 4 things encapsulate the things that I think we care about as a company. And so like you pointed out, integrity is really important, which it is for, a lot of human beings. What you can do, a way to think about that is actually maybe just thinking about people that you respect in your life, or it can be team members that you worked with before that you've just really appreciated their work or their presence or something. People that you respect in your life, or, whether they're friends or family members or people you look up to, and try and distill what it is that you like about them and why you enjoy working with them. And you should end up with this kind of list of just like things you like about other people. You could do it about yourself as well. Like, what is it? What characteristics do I like about myself and how I show up? And then I guess it's just circling the ones, like it's finding the handful that represent the whole. So, like integrity could be a mix of like punctuality and like good communication and like all of these different things, but it could all boil into integrity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's a bit of and it's a weird exercise to go through, I think, because like you were saying at the start, it's like you've got these questions of like, do I even need to do this?
Mm-hmm.
But I think particularly because it's going to flow on to so many of the challenges that you're having at the moment in terms of getting the right people on team, it's like you really need to figure out like, who do I want on this team? Like, just assume that everyone has the skills. Like, let's just assume that that's all checked out. Like, if you had 1,000 people apply for every job that you put up and they were all perfectly skilled, like, how would you choose between them?
Yeah, the more and more we're talking about it, I think it's making more and more sense to me. Because without integrity, if they don't stick to the due dates, that just it's going to create churn for us with clients. And the more clients will retain if we are sticking to our word and we are getting things done. And even the clients would get the vibes from the team, because if they are happy and they're working really hard and they love what's happening inside the organization, what we're working towards, they would put all of their effort into making it work. It's 50-50, like all the analytical skill side of things is being pushed by the other side of all this integrity and values and mission and vision, which is pretty cool.
And the thing with skills, it's like skills can be trained, which takes time, which you don't often have in a startup. But skills can be trained, but you can't change someone's culture and their values. So it's like that's really if you want to have that kind of company where everyone just thrives where they're working, it really does come down to that part first.
Yeah, gotcha. Now I want to talk about very specific things like when being in a remote team, what kind of things that have you set up on Slack to make sure that people are enjoying working on a day-to-day basis?
You want the meat. Give me the tactics. Yeah, cool. It's funny because like you are still in our Slack. And I think people see such the surface level of it. So you might see the Slack channels where people are like, we have radio Dashdot. So it's just like people, not everyone has to engage in everything either. It's like, if you don't care about music, you don't need to be in there. But it's just like, we have a channel where people share, I'm listening to this today, like happy Friday, here's a disco tune, like stuff like that. And if you're into music, like it just helps you to find your people within this remote space, which again is such a big part of culture. It's like, because we are all remote, I really want to try and create the situations where people can connect to each other, because there are so many people on our team that have never met each other in person, and they're just in their workspace in their home or wherever they're working, and they're still showing up 100%, like engaging with the team, but it's like you don't have that same in-person interaction that historically people have had at work when they've worked in offices. And I think it's just a really interesting shift in the world these days, trying to figure out these mechanical, tactical things of like, how do I bridge those gaps? We have like those kind of channels where we share like people that are into music, they share what they're listening to. People that are foodies share about their food. Like there's people that are working nomadically, like they're traveling around while they're working, like sharing just photos of their travels. We do have just a general team all, which is just everyone in there. So it's just like if anyone wants to share anything about their life, if anyone's got any news. And that's really cool, because it's like if you have some kind of win in your life, like we've got this culture where we're able to now just like share that, and everyone's like, yeah, that's awesome, which is important to do. And it's important to do even if like early on, if you start doing it and you don't actually get a huge amount of engagement, because a lot of people are still kind of figuring out how I fit in here, and like, am I going to be judged? Is this like a cool thing to say? Because it's like, it's the inherent need of humans to want to belong and not be judged for who they are. So it's like, you've got this like, do I say this? Do I even like, do I like that? Do I give it an emoji? What do I do here? And so you might experience that with your team, where it's like a bit of pushback, not very much engagement, because they're just trying to figure it out. And so you just kind of need to keep doing it and keep figuring, like just keep like showing up like, no, this is how we do it here. Like we encourage everyone to just like share stuff about their life. So that's on like the wider team level. There's also just a matter of like having team meetings and like connecting the team together. Because I get the sense maybe your team, they're all kind of just, are they all individually just working for you?
Yeah.
And so in that sense, you're like their manager, right? So there's, you can have management and then you have leadership. So it's kind of like management is making sure that the tasks are getting done and we're meeting the deadlines and we're working towards the overall plan. But then leadership is really like getting the most out of your team. And so figuring out like where would you want to sit with that? Are you happy being management, which again is totally cool? Other people, like people love it. Other people really just want to be kind of leading everyone. Where do you think you would sit?
Yeah, I actually thought I wanted to be in the leadership role, like making sure that we are all in a team and then moving forward. But I thought it's a challenge to make happen with contractors, is what I was thinking, because like they're all contracted, they're not employees, they're not obligated to show up to meetings. But yeah, that's not where I want to be. I want to be leading and having town halls and talking about how we can develop each other and then go to trainings together. Yeah, that's where I want to be.
Yeah, and this is where it comes back to like what I was saying in that interview process. It's like being really upfront with people when you're hiring them now, of like, this is my expectation. Not in a dogmatic like do what I say thing, but it's like, I'm not hiring contractors. I know technically, mechanically you're a contractor, but I'm building a team here. So I'm not, my expectation is you're going to come on board. I'm going to train you. Like I've got X experience. Like I'm going to share my skills with you and you're going to get better, because people like that as well, particularly in your space. But I'm not hiring you just to do a job. We're a team. You're going to get, we've got other editors, like it's a cool team, like you're going to interact with everyone. Here's why we're doing this, and that's where you seed like the mission and what we're all kind of working towards together. If this is something you're interested in, then we can jump on and we'll do another interview. And then people are opting into that step of the process. So then you're only getting people on board from there who know like, okay, we have town halls, or like I'm expected to interact with other people on the team. And it's actually something that they want then. Like if they've opted in to the process through the interview, like they're expecting that.
Makes sense.
Yeah, which was a bit of a challenge you're probably at now because you may not have that with the current team. But again, you can try starting to put these things in place. Like you can have, start with a weekly town hall or something. You probably will get maybe two out of 10 people show up because you don't have that culture yet. But again, it's that starting of this is what we do. And then you create these, and they're not like rules, but they're just expectations of how we do things here. Of, look, this is how we do things. If you want to be on the team, it'd be really awesome for you to show up here because this is the value that you get out of it. And just keep doing it. Makes
total sense. I am expecting them to act as employees while I'm hiring them as contractors, which is my mistake in the first place.
Like I was saying as well, it's a cultural thing, not necessarily like where they're from, but so for me, we have a lot of team in the Philippines, and their cultural experience in terms of working for people is this just transactional, don't really have a connection with the business owners or like the mission. I'm just literally here to just do my tasks. And that's really sad to me as a business owner, because I know there's so many Filipinos particularly that are treated that way. But they're humans just like everyone else. Like everyone has these desires to belong and to want to work towards something important and to have a purpose and all these kinds of things. And so if we want to create this kind of environment where they show up for us, like we need to start by creating that infrastructure and these, artifacts about the mission and the story and like why we're doing this. And then the structure of like, we meet as a team. So there's the team piece, but then there's also one-to-ones, which can, if you want to be a leader, this can be a bit tricky when you're stuck in the weeds of like managing people, but it's having those like weekly or however frequently you want to do one-to-ones with people, partly for their work, like just doing a feedback loop on their work. So if they've been missing deadlines or if they're struggling or they're, maybe they're sandbagging their work to like they'll get it over the line like just an hour before it's due. You can talk about performance things there. They can give you feedback, and that's a really important thing to start doing as well. It's like, how can I provide more support to you? Like, is there something that I'm not doing that's not what you need? But then also checking in with them personally, because it comes back as well. There's the mission for the company, but also like what are they trying to achieve with their life? And making sure that what the company is doing and that the work that they're doing is still in some way helping them to achieve that. So for a lot of people, it's like a financial goal that they're working towards. And so just checking in with them, like, how is that going? You don't need to ask specifics, but it's like, how are you outside of work? Are you all good? Just checking in with them. And that, again, is going to help. Like that ritual, it's like, this place that I work cares about me as an individual and cares about me making sure that I'm reaching my goals as well. And then we also have this cool thing that we're all working on towards as a team. Like you can see how that stacks up to be a really powerful culture.
That's really cool. I have so much to take away and action on, which is awesome. It's just crazy. Cool. Like from these 2 calls that I had with you and Goose, I'm possibly like at least 3-4 years ahead of what I would have learned if I just did that on my own, Oh,
that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, so valuable.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. If you need any more help with it, I'm happy to jump on.
Yeah, amazing. I'm anyway going to take snippets from this, and hopefully this might help a lot of people that I know personally as well, because I know a lot of since I'm Sri Lankan, my audience is primarily from Sri Lanka, and they definitely don't have really good remote cultures. Not remote, like they don't even have good cultures in like physical workplaces. And I think this will be a very, very valuable discussion for them as well. So thank you so much.
Cool, you're welcome.